A very important election is just around the corner. August 30th, you have the opportunity to vote for mayor and city council. And the big news is 26 new voting centers are in place to make sure it's convenient for you to vote. Here to talk a little bit about this is Chris Meyer. Chris is our city clerk for the city of Phoenix. It's great seeing you, Chris.
Good to see you, Deborah. Thanks for having me.
So tell me about this these voting centers. This is all new to the city.
Yes, we're switching to voting centers from traditional polling places. Only a few places in the country have tried this, and we're the first ones in Arizona to do it. And it's designed to make voting at the polls more convenient and easy. In city elections, most people vote by mail. Over 95% cast ballots by mail, but we wanted to find a way to make the voting at the poll experience more convenient and flexible. So we've gone to voting centers. As you said, there'll be 26 locations around the city, and any voter can vote at any of them. With traditional polling places, you had to vote at one site that was near your home in your precinct. But it's not that way with the voting centers. You can go to any of them, and instead of just election day, you can vote on 3 days. The voting centers will be open for 3 days, on election day, the Monday before the election, and on Saturday before the election.
Okay, now I want to make sure that our viewers and our residents really do understand this. 26 voting centers. You can go to any one of those 26 voting centers. So if you're out with the kids on Saturday, whatever is closest to where you're at, you can vote. Now, what are the hours?
The hours on election day will be the traditional 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. On Monday, they'll be open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And on Saturday before the election, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay, now what if somebody wants to do the traditional, maybe vote by mail, I'm going to be out of town and I do want to participate? What do they do?
Yeah, voting centers doesn't change voting by mail. Great question. It's exactly the same as it was. If you're on the permanent early voting list, you'll be mailed an early ballot. About 300,000 voters are on that list. And you can still drop those ballots off at any of the voting centers on the 3 days they're open. And you just come in, take the ballot to the ballot box. You don't have to go through the process to vote.
Okay, well, speaking of the process, let's talk about this first station here too. So let's say I am going to be one of those people that want to vote at one of the voting centers. I stop here first and foremost?
Come here first, yeah.
Okay.
First thing you see is a table for check-in. Okay. It's the same process generally for a voter that they're used to seeing.
Okay.
But you'll come in and you fill out a slip, a voter information slip with your name and address to expedite the check-in process so we can verify your registration.
Got it.
Voters who do not vote early will receive a postcard in the mail in July that tells them about voting centers and some of the information we're providing here. And if you bring this to the polling place, you can go straight to where you check in and they can check you in using that, so you won't have to fill out the slip.
Okay, so you pass go from here. Okay,
Exactly.
That sounds great. Okay, after you've proceeded through the first station, you come to the next station, which asks for identification. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, now tell our viewers what's the appropriate. I'm sure a driver's license is always probably the best thing.
Yeah, with voting centers, just like at polling places, you're required to provide ID. And it's supposed to be a photo ID with your name and address, or if you don't have a photo ID, it can be 2 other types of ID that have your name and address on them. Most common is a driver's license that can be used. So when you come over here, you'll take your ID and the slip that you filled out, and you'll provide it to the roster judge. Now, we still have to check in and verify your registration, but now we'll be doing that on the computer instead of in the books because we have to have all of the registered voters in the city available to do that. So they will verify the ID, look me up, and then I will sign the signature roster just as we used to have to do it. So we keep a list of everyone who voted. You will sign as you used to do. So they take the information, put it in the book.
Okay. And then your signature
And
right
then
there.
I sign.
Okay.
Just as we did with polling places.
Now, we did talk about, thank you, now we did talk about the importance of having the appropriate identification, and I know your website provides that information. What other forms of identification will work?
Any government-issued ID with
So like
name
my
and
city
address,
badge
a
would be?
photo. Your city badge doesn't have your address.
That's correct.
So you have to find ones. Now, a passport is usable, but the passports also don't have addresses. So you need to have something else, a utility bill or a bank statement, something like that that has a name. All of that information is on our website, as you said, and also the publicity pamphlet that gets mailed to all the registered voter households in late July will have all the information about ID that's acceptable.
Okay, so let's do a real quick recap. It's very important when you come to this next station, when you come to any of the 26 voting centers, make sure you have appropriate identification with your picture and address. There are other forms of ID that will work too, but the best is really your driver's license. You can go to the website and check out to see the other forms of ID that will work. We're here talking about city elections. They're just around the corner on August 30th. And there are 26 voting centers, new voting centers, which we've been talking about all along. Tell us what station we're at right now.
Okay, we're at the 3rd station, which is where you actually get your ballot. So when I checked in and they verified my registration, they actually printed the ballot. So I take the information slip and give it to the ballot judge who will get my ballot for me. Now you notice the printer, and something we're doing different for the first time this year, is that we're actually printing the ballots as they're needed at the locations, all 26 sites. So we don't have to print ballots for all of the people who don't vote. We only print them for the ones that are actually voting and we need it.
Well, this is huge too, because I know that those voting ballots have gone out and sometimes they're not being used, unfortunately, because we do want you to vote and do your civic duty. So this cost savings for the city must be phenomenal.
Yeah, this will save between $50,000 and $100,000 an election to not have to print ballots for the voters that don't actually cast ballots.
Wow. Well, I also want to point out too, at these 26 new voting centers, there will also be Spanish speakers as well, correct?
That's correct. The ballot itself is in English and Spanish.
Perfect.
And we will have Spanish-speaking board workers at each location to assist people that need help with English.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so well, now the next step is we're going to cast our vote.
That's right.
Well, this is an actual voting booth you'll see at a voting center. In fact, we are actually at one of the 26 voting centers that you may have the opportunity to vote at. And this is, again, for the City of Phoenix election only for mayor and city council. And there are actually particular districts that we're voting for this time around.
That's right. In addition to mayor, voters will be voting for council members in districts 1, 3, 5, and 7, the odd number districts. There's no election for council member in the even number districts regularly scheduled this time because the council terms are staggered so that they're not all elected at the same time. But in District 2, voters will be voting for a council member on a special election to fill a vacancy.
Good point, and that is actually my district, District 2, up in the northeast section. So if you don't know your district, very easy, go down to phoenix.gov/elections. There will be a map there, and you can figure out the alignments and where your streets cross, because let's do your civic duty, and we want to make sure you go out and vote. Very important, and let's talk about some of the props you have on there too.
Well, on the ballot, it's the same ballot as we voted in the past, so you'll connect the arrows next to your choice. And there are two propositions in addition to the races. One is the alternate expenditure limitation, which sets the spending limit that the city has for the next 4 years. That's voted on every 4 years.
Okay.
And then on the back of the ballot, make sure you vote both sides, there is a referendum, the first one to ever be on a city ballot, actually, and that relates to a zoning measure.
Okay, now all this information is on the website too. Maybe, do some homework, take a look at all those very important issues, because the important thing is that you have a voice, and we want to make sure you get out the vote. Now, to complete the voting process, we need to cast our vote, or your vote, I should say.
That's right. We go to the ballot box and deposit the ballot in the box, and then I'll receive my I voted sticker to let people know that I participated and voted.
That's right, and you did your civic duty. I want to remind people again, we are actually at a voting center located at 22nd Avenue and Lower Buckeye. It's going to be one of the 26 new voting centers that are offered up this year for the very important election. August 30th is a city election for mayor and city council. Very excited about it all.
Yeah, it's very important to remember that this voting center process that we've been going through only applies to City of Phoenix elections. It will not be used for federal, state, and county elections at this point in time. The state's looking at maybe going that direction, but for now it's just City of Phoenix elections. So you'll still have to go to your traditional polling place, the one designated to vote in a federal, state, or county election.
And we want to encourage people to do their part. And also, I just want to recap too, the cost savings, again, with these new voting centers is just phenomenal.
Yes, the voting centers cost about 25% less than a traditional voting polling place election, and less than all mail elections. We estimate that we're going to save between $200,000 and $250,000 for an election by using this method instead of polling places.
Wow. Well, Chris, thank you so much for being with us. Now, for Phoenix election results, you can watch us on the web at phoenix.gov or go to Phoenix 11 and watch live results. For Phoenix 11, I'm Deborah Cedillo Dugan.